The United States government is reportedly applying a strategy against Cuba that closely mirrors its previous approach to Venezuela, with potential criminal charges against Cuban officials now on the horizon. This aggressive stance is being pursued behind the scenes, with a special working group actively examining possible indictments. Reports from the Washington Post and NBC News, citing confidential sources, indicate that the Department of Justice has established this working group specifically to review potential charges against high-ranking Cuban government representatives and entities. The involvement of the Department of the Treasury suggests that further economic sanctions against Cuba are also being actively considered by the Trump administration. This move draws a clear parallel to the United States' strategy against Venezuela's former president, Nicolás Maduro. Maduro was indicted by US justice years before his eventual arrest and extradition. Possible criminal proceedings against Cuban officials could involve charges related to drug trafficking or violent crimes following a similar pattern. President Donald Trump has repeatedly voiced his belief that socialist Cuba is on the verge of collapse. In late February, he even publicly suggested a peaceful takeover of the island. During a phone interview with CNN, President Trump declared that the island, which he described as crippled by an oil blockade, would fall pretty soon. He also emphasized that Cuba is so desperate to make a deal. Indeed, the relationship between Havana and Washington has been strained for decades. Cuba, an authoritarian-ruled Caribbean island, is currently experiencing its most severe economic crisis since the revolution led by Fidel Castro in 1959. The nation is grappling with critical shortages, particularly of fuel. Since the 9th of January, Cuba has received no oil shipments, exacerbating its long-standing economic woes. While Washington recently eased the oil blockade slightly for humanitarian reasons, allowing private Cuban companies to import small quantities of oil, the overall pressure remains immense. Should the United States succeed in permanently blocking oil deliveries from Venezuela, which historically has been Cuba's primary supplier, the Cuban economy could face a complete collapse. President Trump underscored his administration's focus on this issue, stating, "We are really focused on that right now. We have a lot of time, but Cuba is ready after 50 years." He further announced that Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the son of Cuban immigrants, would be his key contact person for Cuba policy. Trump praised Rubio's work and indicated that his next assignment would be to tackle this particular Cuba. Both President Trump and Secretary Rubio have openly stated their desire for a change in leadership in Havana. The current strategy involving potential criminal charges and intensified sanctions appears to be a calculated effort to increase pressure on the Cuban government and precipitate such a change, leveraging tactics previously employed in the ongoing geopolitical struggles in Latin America. What's your take on US Targets Cuba with Venezuela Playbook, Sanctions Loom? Share your view in the comments. Do you think this will matter in the next news cycle? This video was generated using artificial intelligence.